Welcome back to the Nomad CEO. I'm here with Payden Squires, a financial advisor and consultant for wealth planning and taxes, which sounds a little bit boring, but I'm sure you're going to come up with a good story today.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are here on a podcast about transformation, and we want to hear stories about men who have overcome struggles, hardship, something that is worthwhile sharing. We want to inspire and encourage men who are going through a difficult time. And so welcome to the show, Payden.
Yeah, thanks, Roman. Thank you for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you the same question I always ask my guests, which is, what was your pivotal moment, your transformational moment? It doesn't have to be a specific one, but usually I want to point to something in the past, and how did you end up becoming the person you are today?
Yeah, that's a big question. Looking back to my history, I wouldn't really say there's one pivotal moment, but it's a lot of small moments that have kind of led me on my path. Just to give you a little background. So I'm a CPA, CFP. I've run my own tax and wealth practice for a little over a decade. We work with a lot of different entrepreneurs and stuff at a really high level, helping them do some tax and wealth planning. But really, my story goes back. I'm from Central Missouri, middle of the United States, middle of Missouri, tiny town of about 1,000 people. So I grew up in very rural Missouri. My background, grew up a farm. Like I said, once again, rural Missouri. And grew up in a single mom family. My dad struggled a lot with alcohol and drugs, and was in and out of my life quite a bit. So I spent a lot of my childhood alone. My mom was hustling, doing her thing, going to school at night, and doing what she could to raise me and my sister. So as a kid, I spent a lot of time alone. And I was very much a kind of intellectual person. I really like reading and doing different things. But I had a pretty chaotic childhood, like I said, with my dad's kind of erratic behavior and things going on in that world. Growing up, my mom had, lost jobs at different times, and we had some financial insecurities there. And I think that's really what led me into the world of money and why I, got into the world of money. I knew from my experience as a kid that I never wanted to be poor or in that position of vulnerability like we were when I was younger. And that really drove me to dive into the world of money, knowing, hey, I need to have money. I want to have money to be able to be, successfully live my life and live, like how I wanted to. But it was, one of my biggest breaking points was I had gotten out of school. I started working in a career. I worked for several large corporations, worked in banking, worked in insurance. I lasted about 3 years as an employee in the working space. Quickly realized that I wasn't a great employee, as in, like, I wanted to have control over what I was doing in my daily schedule and those types of things. So I had made a big decision in 2014 with the support of my wife, to quit my job and open up my own practice in my living room. This was back in 2014. Had no idea what I was doing, but 11 years later, we've grown into a team and all the stuff that we have going on today. But that transformation, I think, it really, a lot of my transformation, I think it comes down to trying to become more and more self-aware. I really dove into self-development, reading, podcast, all those types of things, trying to learn as much as I could about myself. And then in turn, I could take that information and operate in the world.
Wow, great story. I mean, this sounds like it's been since you've become an entrepreneur, it's been going uphill all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
obviously it's not. I mean, I guess if you zoom out, you see it's been going uphill all the time. But, like,
some
of course,
bumps on the road.
day to day, it doesn't feel like that, right?
Yeah, but it's not like you haven't had like a sort of a like total failure or something. It was like looking from the outside, there's
Yeah.
been growth, and you have been on a path of success and
Yeah.
personal fulfillment, right? Sounds like I mean, in your case, you come from you say you have had a difficult childhood, um, and that's trauma too, in a way.
Yeah.
We
Oh
all,
yeah.
yeah. So how did that influence your? I mean, you say you realize you want to make money because without
Right.
money, it's screwed up, right? It's not really. Um, and so, how important was that on your ability to make money? I mean, because you realize that an employee, you're not going to be an employee.
Yeah.
It's not going
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
allow me to make the money I want, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I speak to that a little bit. So yeah, one of my favorite like motivational speakers was Jim Rohn. He's been dead for years now, but he talks about how wages will make you a living, right, as an employee, but profits um um can make you an amazing living or whatever, right? Profits is what you want, not necessarily wages, right? Um, so yeah, you're right. My background of kind of financial insecurity, as a kid, led me to really dive into money. And quickly, like I said, I graduated from college actually in the middle of a major recession in the 2009 time period, especially in the United States. I was coming out with degrees in finance when everybody in finance across the country I mean, everybody was laying off everybody. Every major bank in the United States was going under.
Yeah,
So, so
I remember.
yeah, yeah. But I quickly realized when I actually got into some of those jobs, just looking around, it's like, hey, all my bosses, I don't want to do anything that they're doing. And then also it's, I think that one of the main pivotal moments is when it was one of my first jobs. I was working at a local bank, and I had my employee review after being there for a year, doing a great job, out producing basically everybody. And they gave me like a 2% raise, which equated to like 20 cents or something at the time. And I was told by my direct superior that I should be happy with that because a lot of people aren't getting any raises. And that day, in the middle of that employee review, I knew I could never work as an employee somewhere. And that started a journey of entrepreneurship that I just kind of took one step at a time, learned all the different skills I needed to learn. Because when I quitted my job, yes, I knew I had obtained my CPA at that point before I started my practice, but like I didn't know anything about business. I mean, I knew some stuff about business, but the real operating a business, sales, marketing, all those types of things that come into running and building a very real business, I knew nothing about. And it took me, I'm 11 years down the road and I'm still learning all kinds of stuff, but it took me, a decade of piecing all this stuff together to be able to build a business that, maybe doesn't revolve around me or doesn't necessarily need my energy and efforts every single day for things to move forward.
Yeah. So, does your business require you to be? Is it still dependent on you?
It is still, yeah, we're still in that transition phase. I mean, very much so. I mean, the first, I would say 7, 8 years, it was like solely dependent on me. I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, we've really started making that transition of me getting more into just, sales and marketing roles, more so marketing roles, and being kind of the founder, the owner, the visionary, and less so much the actual practitioner of the work.
Yeah, because this is where I've had an entrepreneur on my show not long ago, an English entrepreneur, and he specializes on preparing founders for exiting their companies. He
Hmm.
says that the best day to prepare for an exit is when you start your business, and the second best day is today.
Yeah. And I think that's just like what Stephen Covey said, like begin with the end in mind. Like, you're going into your business. Like most people just open a business and have really no idea what they're doing. And that's fine because you're learning. But like going into business, understanding like what are you building? Are you building just like an income source, like a side hustle? Are you building, some organization that you hope to sell someday? There is no wrong answer, but you need to know, like, because you're going to make very different decisions depending on what you're actually trying to build there. So it's always important in business, really important in every area of your life is like begin with the end in mind, right? Like know what you're working towards.
Yeah, but it's often not clear at the beginning.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know why they're starting a business.
Yeah. The only thing they may be able to articulate is like, hey, I don't
I want to
like
make
my
money.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to make money and I don't like my job. And like this isn't to, to beat up on people, but like, I'm in a lot of different rooms. I do a lot of entrepreneur stuff. I host my own podcast on entrepreneurship, behind their success, where we interview entrepreneurs all the time. So I love, the game of business, but I'm in a lot of rooms and mastermind groups and whatnot where people are describing their business, telling them, talking about their problems and what's going on. And almost always my advice is you're not clear enough on what you're doing or what you're trying to do. It's almost always a lack of clarity of like what the end game is. Because once you get really clear on what the end game is, like you can work backwards and all the solutions to your problems, or of like, not that it's easy to fix all your problems, but it's like, okay, I need to do
at
this.
least you know if you're going into the right direction.
Yeah, you have a North Star you're heading towards, right? Like in every decision, you can run it past of like, hey, does this get me closer to my goal or further away from my goal? It's impossible to like get directly to your goal, but like you need to be directionally correct, moving in the right area.
Yeah, I've struggled with that too in the past, but I mean, it's also it's okay to sort of find out as you move forward.
Yeah. Well,
It's
yeah.
You just have to, I guess you're just not supposed to, yeah, you have to keep asking yourself, right? So until you know, it's
Yeah.
like becoming clear on your purpose or the purpose of the company, and not just a mission statement on the wall, but actually
Some actual meaning to.
that has real meaning to, not to just for you, but to you, but also the people around you that need to, because these questions like why did you start the business in the first place is important. Like start with why. That guy, the speaker and also motivational speaker. I forgot his name. He said it. He wrote a book called "Start with Why."
Oh yeah,
And
Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek, yeah, and it's true. And then once you have your why, you also know who you're serving.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yeah.
connected, those two, right? So, because I had this problem with my business that I didn't know. I started from a different point of, like, I had this, my dad called me because I wanted to also become an entrepreneur. So I said, okay, what am I
Mm-hmm.
going to sell? Right. And then my dad called me, that I remember that 2008, and he said, Roman, it was
Mm-hmm.
2007, was it? There's this new technology, emerging technology in Germany, nanotech. We could do something. And I know somebody inside those companies, we manufacturers. We can go there and you can check it out, and maybe we can do something. And I said, okay, cool, sounds great. Nanotech, okay, futuristic, and I said, okay, and I went there. Next day, a few days later, I was on a plane, and I bought into that idea of like picturing myself like this vision of a nanotech company changing revolutionizing the industry, because it was such a cool concept. But that was the wrong approach, because I started with a product in mind, and then I thought, okay, so who needs that?
Yeah.
Then, and this was completely backwards, and this caused a shitload of problems down the road.
That's so. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we get these, great ideas as entrepreneurs or whatever, and build this amazing product or service or whatever in our head that we think is amazing, but the market
Nobody
doesn't.
cares about your nano.
Nobody cares, and that's the yeah, and that's what that's why I love entrepreneurship and the game of business so much. Is it is a great. I think it's the greatest like self development tool, right?
It
Like
is
because
in
you
disguise.
you yeah, you got like this market out there that is just like brutal, right? Like they don't care. They either like your stuff or don't. And they'll
It's
tell
the
you, they'll
it's the Wild
and
West.
they'll vote with their dollars, right? Like, and it's just this honest reflection. It's like, do you are you good or not? And it just gives you a perfect mirror to be like, okay, that I may love this, but it didn't work. So like what needs to change, right? In
Yeah.
the whole area.
Yeah, it's like a real-time reality check ongoing every day. Like it's like
Yeah, you can
you get
argue with it
slapped in
all
the
you
face.
want, but do customers give you money or not? And that's like that ultimately that's, what it comes down to, right?
Yes. And it's true. Yeah, you have to. It's just about so, and then it's an extension of your. The business is an extension of yourself, and then you and how well you do better. You constantly
Yeah.
improve on yourself and then on the business, and you reflect on the mistakes. And if in the best case scenario, because there's a lot of lazy. I mean, you're not gonna make it for a long time if you don't take action and change things, right? And I mean, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there. You shouldn't be entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, well, they get into entrepreneurs. They like the idea of it. I mean, it's not for everybody. As much as I talk about entrepreneurship and push it and want more and more people to do it. Yeah, it's not for everybody's personality. But yeah, you're right. Like as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to just sit there and get punched in the face. And willing to be like humble enough to like, okay, that didn't work. The customer didn't buy the product or whatever happened, and be willing to be humble enough and sit there and say, okay, I can sit here and complain about the market or the world and how it treats me so bad or my business so bad or whatever. Or instead of trying to change the world, I can adjust to something in my business, which is probably a lot easier than changing the world, to figure out how to make the thing just a little bit better. So it's just like this constant, like, putting some out there, being humble, being brave enough to put something out there, self-confident enough to put something out there, but then at the same time, be humble enough to listen to feedback, not listen to everybody's feedback, and not all feedback's the same, but listen to feedback and being able to adjust, your actions and not take that personally. Often people put out their work out there and they're so scared, they put it out there, they get one like negative thing and it's like, oh my gosh, they're attacking me, and they just kind of shut down and go home.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to be honest here. I'm also one, especially true when you do content,
Yep.
like because it's always tied to your personal. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're a solopreneur or some
Yeah,
so
yeah, and the same with me. Like I'm in professional services, like as I'm in like a consultant, an advisor. Like my business is people helping people, so it is very much like personality driven and
yeah. But well, I mean, you're putting yourself out there in a podcast as well, so you're sharing opinions, which is also open to criticism and both positive and negative. Now, if you're consulting is business environment, you're not publicly broadcasting your consultations, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
this
yeah,
is a
yeah.
different situation. But yeah, I guess you're right about that. So what was your what's your biggest surprise since you have been on this journey of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Yeah, my biggest surprise, I think is that, the difference between, like, being successful and not, quote, "not being successful" is so small, and, like, the difference between people that, do 10 times the work or produce 10 times the results somebody else does, the differences are so small.
What do you mean with small? The
Yeah,
input?
yeah, yeah. I mean, the difference is in, the guy that makes 100K a year and the difference is, and a guy that makes $1 million a year, like on the surface, you wouldn't think they were major differences, right? Like you take two guys, guy makes 100 grand a year as an entrepreneur, another guy makes $1 million as a year as an entrepreneur. You wonder, okay, what's the difference? I look at them on the surface, they both have families, they both have kids, like they grew up in the same types of areas, the same, like on the surface you'd be like, what is the difference, right? Like why does one guy make 10 times what the other guy makes? And the differences are so small, but they're differences that happen on a daily basis, so they compound out. For example, like, one of those guys goes to the gym and the other one doesn't. And when you see like, okay, this one guy goes to the gym and you watch him work out and it just looks like a very normal workout. And one day later, this one guy's gone to the gym one time and the other guy's gone to the gym no times. Okay. And the difference between the two is basically zero, right? Because he's only gone to the gym once. But the thing is, when you compound that out over 10 years, 15 years, your whole lifetime, that guy that goes to the gym every day is in a totally different world than the guy that never went to the gym, right? So it's like it's all these tiny little things that are super simple. They're not necessarily easy, but they're very simple that you can do on a daily basis, because everything that, anything you do on a daily basis is massive. Even something really tiny, a choice you make on a daily basis, but if you do it every day, it's actually a massive decision when you compound it out, like going to the gym. It's the difference between people that are successful and they're not successful are the people that just lean into it a little bit, right? Like the people that aren't successful, they kind of avoid the work a little bit, or like, they'll do it, but like they're not leaning into it, right? Like they're not trying to face it as much. It's the people that just lean into the work and face it every single day, like going to the gym every single day. Those people get so much further down the line than the people that are kind of, yeah, they're doing it, but like they're not quite all in, right?
Yeah.
It's so small, but it's so huge when you come.
Yes, I guess that's true. And also the level of commitment they show to whatever they're
Yeah.
doing. Right?
Yeah, and the guy that makes 10 times, he does everything just a little better. But the thing is, it's everything, and it's on a daily basis, so it compounds out. And people don't realize that like everything you do on a daily basis matters tremendously, because it's something you do every day of your life. It's like, hey, you want to make a plan to lose 20 pounds? Well, like all you got to do is eat like one less bite like at every meal for a year, and you'll lose 20 pounds, right? And you won't even notice it on a daily basis, because like what's one less bite, right? But that one less bite, you add those calories up over a year, and oh my God, you just lost 20 pounds. And people just don't realize the power of compounding. I work in the world of finance and money. People really don't understand the power of compounding. It works like that, really in every area of your life.
Yes, small daily improvements add up a lot over time. It's this Japanese Kaizen concept
Mhm.
also
Yeah.
that
Yeah, 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 yeah. Constant
playing
improvement, right?
playing out big time after
Yeah,
years down
Six
the.
Sigma, all that kinda stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so that was your biggest surprise, finding out that there's the small difference between those who have massive success and those who just
Yeah.
like
Yeah, and
average.
I'd add one more thing there, Roman, is that the other thing is that it is those small differences, and by what else I mean by that is, like, the people that are really, really successful generally aren't that much different than you. Like, I used to think, I used to put people, on pedestals of like, "Oh my gosh, this guy has an amazing business." Well, now I've worked with so many different entrepreneurs and so many amazing entrepreneurs, I realized that, like, they're, people running these big businesses, they're normal people too. And like, I mean, they don't have some super special skills or whatever that, are born with some innate talents that you don't have. No, they just develop skills and continue to self-development and just never stopped.
Yeah, or they're just doing something exceptionally well. What I've learned, what's surprising to me, if I may share my surprise as well, is that there is you don't have to have the perfect business to have a good. I mean, you just have to do one thing exceptionally well, and then that's all there is. You need to know. So
Yeah,
you can build a huge business on simple funnel, which is not complicated. Just have to get it right once, and then
yeah.
optimize.
Yeah, and
It's
here's
actually
another thing to encourage listeners or people that might be, interested in entrepreneurship is like you don't have to have some crazy new idea either. It's
like
like,
yeah.
for example, and if I was to get out of the business I do and like to purchase or start another business, it would be some boring like home service based business like an HVAC company, or a plumbing or landscaping,
Yeah,
stuff
or
like that.
window
You know,
cleaning
yeah, it's
company
easy stuff, power washing stuff. Like it would be something like that, because something that I know that everybody needs, like the
needs.
need for that. Yeah, it needs, right? You got to get your air conditioning fixed, right? And what I would do is just, the business models out there, you can just copy what a successful company does and just like do a little better. That's all you
I
got
would
to do.
yeah. Yeah,
Is
I would
like be,
actually
do a little better, be marketing and good at customer service, and like that's all you got to do, and just do, the follow through on what you say you're going to do.
yeah, or even better, you look out for someone who has one that and is selling.
Yeah.
You can
And
buy
today's world,
and then you finance it. You can, if the numbers work out, you can actually get an easy. It's actually easy to get a credit for that,
Yeah,
I think.
and especially in the United States with SBA loans and whatnot, and massive opportunity. Especially in the United States, and I assume across the world too, where just we have aging populations, right? Like most businesses in the United States are owned by 60-some-year-olds. The baby boomer generation that is retiring or nearing retirement, and most of these businesses have no succession plan. So the ability to come in, make an offer on a profitable business and get the owner, you say you can get loans and stuff for it. Yeah, most of the times you don't even need bank loans because if you know what you're doing, wheeling and dealing, you can get the owner to finance it because they don't want all the money up front either, generally for tax purposes. And you can get into a nice cash flowing business with little to money, no money down. And there's a lot of opportunity in that over the next 10, 15 years for sure.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I know a friend of my dad also, he just sold his business, and the business still is a supplier for Mercedes-Benz in Germany, in Stuttgart. Actually, big business, relatively mid-sized company, and the guy is over 80 now, and he was still running the business like 2 years ago or a year ago, and so just never really planned for a successor. And but he was late because what happens is that last 2 years were terrible in terms of automotive industry, and it all collapsed literally with for many reasons. But right now these German auto manufacturers are in a very bad place, and so they're laying off a lot of people. um and now was the worst time to sell, and he was forced to because of age.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and how much value was, a little bit of planning, right? Like how much value was lost there in that situation, for that owner
he should
because,
have sold 5 years ago,
he
and
didn't
he would.
begin with the end in mind, right?
Well, yeah, he never planned for an exit. Like
And I
like
would tell you that is the vast majority of businesses. Like, I don't know, I'm making up percentage, but I bet that's 80% of businesses, especially any
probably.
small business. Any business generally under 3 million revenue or something that generally has no succession plan.
Yes, especially the smaller ones, family led or
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. Because if it's a good business, well, wow, usually they just keep going, right? So you
Yeah,
becomes your
that's
ident.
very, very common in my industry. Most accountants, just like die at their
Yeah,
table some tax season or whatever.
yeah, because some businesses are also not meant to become huge companies. They're
Mhm.
just stay that size, and they're comfortable, and that's fine, right? But it
Yeah.
depends on the type of business you're trying to build, I guess. But yeah, I would also go for a boring. Now that I know, because I made that mistake, right? With my first company, I had to reinvent the wheel, literally. Nobody knew what I was selling. So there was no need for that. So you have to start. It's difficult to come up. Yeah, it makes it much more difficult, everything. So boring. Everybody knows what it is. Everybody needs it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and at that point it just becomes a marketing and customer service game. You get really, I love, I had a business mentor teach me at one point. It's like we're all marketing companies, meaning like when it comes down to it, we're all like in the business of telling people about our stuff and what we do and whatever. And without marketing, without telling people, you're not going to have any customers. So, marketing, as a numbers guy and analytical guy, it took me longer to understand the power of branding and marketing and storytelling and all those things. But now I love that. I love that part of the business and communicating with clients and that kind of stuff. But it's very, very crucial to have your
Yeah, I guess that's true. Found a story. It can be in a world of authenticity is important, and being
oh
able
my
to
gosh, yeah.
communicate.
Yeah,
So
and just, just put yourself out there, be yourself, authentic, right? Like and while that's scary, and you are gonna get negative feedback, right? Not everybody's gonna like you. You gotta be okay with that. But the thing is you are going to attract the people you want because the people that connect with you and like your story, they will also select themselves as well. You'll repel some people, but you'll also attract the people you're looking for.
yes, true. And that's fine too, I guess. What is your, let's get into the juicy stuff. What is your most controversial opinion on business?
Man, my kind of, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's several. One I would go to is a really big problem in my industry. I'm a CPA, and but then at the same time I kind of criticize the CPA industry in the United States almost on a daily basis.
Please educate. What is educate
CPA,
me?
certified public accountants. So, in the United
Oh,
States, they're the people that are basically prepping all the income taxes, doing all the
yeah.
accounting, and helping people with all that stuff in the United States.
I hated that.
Right. Most people do. Most people do. And so the industry in the United States, in my opinion, is very, very, very broken. It's become such a game of just compliance and backwards looking and like, okay, we got to make sure everything's technically correct and all the boxes are filled out, like, and everything reconciles to the penny and yada yada yada. But there are always people that are attracted to this industry, analytical type people. Generally, they have no people skills, right? They're analytical, their numbers, their customer service is terrible, and you can see that all the time. People complain to me all the time. Their accountants won't even email them back for months at a time. Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. And the biggest issue is that everybody's so focused on just like prepping taxes and getting the documents put together, is that very little of the industry is actually forward looking, walking alongside the entrepreneurs and saying, okay, hey, how's business doing this year? Like, what do we need to do? What's coming down the pipe in the next 6 months? What decisions can we make around taxes that actually, not to just fill out the paperwork, but to actually strategize
Yeah.
around the
Prepare
tax code and what we should be doing, right? That
to
like
avoid to
never
avoid
happened.
tax. Yeah, but
The
that's
whole the whole industry is just caught up in tax preparation versus, and what we really focus on is tax planning. Like, yes, we do tax preparation, but we don't even think that's the most important part. It's the consulting, the advising, the decision making is where the values actually.
yeah, yeah. So, uh,
And it
uh, what was what was controversial about that? That they are full of shit.
it it there's a lot of CPAs there's a lot of CPAs that toes I step on or tick off a little bit. And it's because I'll come into a situation where, of course somebody's working with a professional and I'll come in, I'm like, hey, they ever talk to you about X, Y, and Z? And the answer is always no. Not always no, but 90% of the time it's no. And I kind of come in and like not purposely trying to upset relationships, but I'm like, hey, I'm here to give you something that, maybe you're not currently getting from your accountant, or you're definitely not getting. And that upsets obviously the industry.
Yeah.
But, moving on, one other controversy I would say I have is that um I'm raised in a small town, very rural, financially conservative type background where debt is taught of being super, super bad. And I'm a very huge proponent of debt. Debt used responsibly, used smartly, used intelligently. I have lots of debt. And all the debt I have is used to forward, is used to grow my net worth. I'm not using debt to buy toys or depreciate assets or whatnot, but like, I was grown up in an environment where all debt was bad, considered bad. And that's something culturally I had to break through and use debt
How you mean?
wisely.
So you also to lower your taxes, basically.
Yeah, lower your taxes, to use leverage to buy assets, to use leverage to get better returns on assets. You got arbitrage between your debt, your interest expense versus what kind of return you can get on the capital. And when people come out and say, debt is all bad, and they're just trying to protect you, and it's true. Like, you can absolutely blow yourself up with debt and get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're not strategic about it. But it absolutely can be fuel, if used strategically.
Okay. Yeah, well, I have a bad experience with debt as well. So I don't
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, and in the United States, there's I don't have you guys heard of Dave Ramsey, he's a massive financial guy in the United States, and he goes on every day on the radio and preaches that nobody should have any debt, and it's just stupid to have any. But if you live in a world where the Federal Reserve of the United States prints 40% of the world's currency and, in 6 months, just trying to save dollars is, it certainly can be a losing game. Using debt to increase your returns because we're in an inflationary environment, and one, in my opinion, I'm not sure it's ever really going to stop. You
What's
know,
the
j- what's
inflation rate
inflation?
in the US
Yeah,
right
in
now?
the United States, yeah, in the US, I don't know, it's tracking around like 2.5, 3%. I mean, it's much, much lower than the rest of the
It's not-
world. And the reason, yeah, well, in inflation in the United States, just how the whole monetary system is set up is always going to be lower than the rest of the world, because as we print money to save ourselves, it really creates inflation across the entire globe. And anytime we do that, we affect the rest of the globe, and it helps us out and kind of spreads the pain to everybody else. And that is the huge benefit of the US dollar being the reserve currency of the world. We get to play games that we can get away with stuff that no other country can get away with from a financial standpoint.
Okay, I don't even know how much the euro inflation is right now, but it's usually also low, I guess. But it went up with
Yeah, yeah, you're kind of secondary currency there in the euro. Euro is going to be a lot more stable than the vast majority of currencies across the world.
yeah. How the question is how long?
Yeah,
For how
yeah,
long?
and see that's the thing, right? Yeah, and how long can the United States run on deficits forever and print
So
dollars and get the rest of the world to go along with that game? At some point that game ends. Yeah, in my opinion. The
what's
problem
your
is it
take on?
usually ends in war.
Yeah, yeah. So what is your take on those digital the digital currency
Yeah,
that
like
wanna
crypto stuff.
they're trying to,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Yeah,
not good.
I discovered, crypto and digital currencies and that stuff, I would say fairly early. I probably started reading about it, 10, 12 years ago or something. I'm pro crypto in a lot of ways. I see a lot of use cases and a lot of reason for like blockchain technology to be very integral in the world going forward. The technology is amazing. And yeah, like I could understand the people that make the case that Bitcoin, or whatever else could very much become could replace like the US dollar as like the reserve currency, right? Because it's this very unique asset that can't be inflated, right? Like right now the United States can, everybody in the world holds US dollars because you have to buy oil in US dollars generally across the globe. So any country that wants to buy oil has to have dollars. And the thing is as every country in the world holds US dollars, well, we have the printing machine. We can just make them up, out of thin air. And that is almost like the United States just literally reaching into other countries and taking the value out. You're literally stealing people's savings. And in reality, effectiveness is what's happening there. And that game doesn't last forever, in my opinion. So, where does the people put their capital if there's war and currencies maybe, losing their value? I don't know. It's great, great, but there's a lot of people that would say it's going to be crypto.
I wasn't even talking about crypto. Crypto is a thing. I also believe that this is well, there's a lot of opportunity also in the tokenization space in general.
Oh
So
yeah.
I have one client of mine. I run their newsletters and their marketing, and they are a real estate tokenization. They
Hmm.
buy, they sell, they buy, they develop hotels here in Bali,
And then
and
try to
then
token it out. Yeah.
sell out the fractional ownership based on the Ethereum blockchain. So
Yeah.
that you can
And
buy.
I think you don't see that stuff yet really in the United States. Like, I mean, it's done, but like it's not common practice at all yet. But I do think that kind of stuff
It's
is,
coming. It's
oh
coming.
yeah, 10 years from now, that'll be very normal.
There
You
are a
know what I
few.
mean? In my opinion.
Yeah, I know this because I have to research the topics, and so in my last, not in the last edition, but one of the last four editions, I made a post about the biggest, I think the five biggest real estate tokenization developments in the world, and two of them were in the United States.
Yeah.
Aspen, it's one hotel
Oh yeah. Colorado.
tokenized. Yeah, and Another
See,
one.
and the reason you don't see a ton of it yet is just like the regulatory environment. You're like, how does, you know what I mean? There's not enough regulatory clearance, or it hasn't been done enough yet to where people are like, okay, we can do this. But that's, when that slowly happens, yeah, you'll see it crazy, and it's going to open up. I don't, people don't understand how big that's going to be. Is where it's like, hey, you can. It like democratizes returns to a degree, or people can
And it completely
participate.
takes out the middleman.
Yeah, people can participate in companies they like. Like,
Yeah.
you can, it's like you can buy a token in your favorite company or whatever, and as you spend money in that company, you also get to share in the economic value, because generally as you spend money in the, it's gonna make your token worth more money, and it's like
Yes.
you can share in the economic value of, real estate or companies or whatever that you love and support.
Yes, exactly. You can buy a piece of a skyscraper of and then from your cell phone without
Yeah, and
having
it's like
to.
and the way to think about it, it's almost like a stock, right? Like you're buying like a percentage of the company, and that's why regulatory wise, like it's got to get through some stuff for it to be like mainstream, because like, yeah, the United States government's going to say, hey, you're selling securities, you're selling stocks, you're selling
Sort
ownership
of,
in something.
yes. But you do get all the s- like the well, smart contracts and
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
security that comes with this technology. Like there's really no
Yeah.
way to get. I mean, unless
It
you.
reduces the fraud, right? Like it almost eliminates fraud. You have like this perfect system that is like you can always trust that you know who owns that token, and it's
Is you still have to research the founder of that company, and if there's the
oh
company
yeah.
itself is legit, that is not a given.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah, or the
technology,
underlying investment is even worth anything, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of layers there you need to do your due diligence on, but like the tokenization and that technology, I think is going to unlock a ton of economic value in a lot of different spaces. But and of course, at the same time, there's going to be tons of fraud and con men and whatever that steal a bunch of people's money through that, especially in the beginning.
yeah, yes, okay. Interesting conversation. Payden, you wanna do a shout out to the audience? How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Two major lanes I run in, right? One's the podcast, which is behind their success. I interview entrepreneurs really all over the country. We release a couple episodes a week, and these are 8, 9 figure business owners that have done a lot of stuff and have a lot of advice to share. So you ever want to check that out? I'd love that. I mean, you can find my info at paydensquires.com there. On the tax and wealth side, Squires Tax Planning .com is my website, name of the business. We really work with, high level entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that really want to get serious about their tax game and make a plan and yeah, just get really intentional and strategic about driving down their tax bill.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and
Yeah.
best of luck, Payden.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Roman. It's been great to meet you. And I appreciate you building this platform for me to be able to come on.
Thank you. Take care, man.
Absolutely. See ya.
Bye. All right.